Move to 1B, ma'am. This seat's for someone who actually paid for it. That's what flight attendant Anna Torres said, loud, firm, and without hesitation. As Lucy Carter stood holding her boarding pass for seat 1A, the words didn't just sting. They burned. The air in the first-class cabin of Skywave Flight SW-117 seemed to freeze for a second. A few passengers turned their heads. One man near 1C lowered his tablet. Then Anna added, even colder. Ms. Watson is a Platinum Circle flyer. You'll need to yield the window seat. Just behind her. A white woman in oversized sunglasses and a beige cashmere wrap folded her arms smugly and smiled. You heard her. She doesn't look like she belongs here anyway. But before we dive into this 7-minute standoff that went viral and brought an airline to its knees, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. And if you've ever seen someone judged just for how they look, hit like, share this video, and subscribe. What happened next? It changed everything. Lucy Carter didn't yell. She didn't raise her voice or wave her ticket around. She simply looked Anna dead in the eye and said, "That seat is mine. Confirm it, or prepare to explain this on the record." She was dressed in a slate gray silk blouse tucked beneath a navy blazer, skirt perfectly pressed, heels sharp. Her poise was unmistakable, her tone final, but Anna didn't budge. She motioned toward the aisle. "This isn't personal. Ma'am, please step aside so Ms. Watson can be seated." Emily Watson, age 47, net worth inherited, self-declared travel influencer. Smirked. "I don't care what she paid. She doesn't fit first class." Claire Brooks, the lead attendant, arrived moments later. "The system showed a failed payment linked to your ticket just before boarding." It auto-cleared. "But protocol says to check the facts before making assumptions." Lucy interrupted. She held up her phone. Boarding pass pulled up clearly. Lucy Carter, 1A. "Do you see this?" Claire hesitated. "Ma'am, the system is wrong. Fix it." And then, just for a moment, a flash of something crossed Claire's face. Not fatigue, not confusion, guilt. As if she knew this wasn't just a mistake. It was bias in motion. Lucy had seen that face before. 20 years ago, she had been denied a first-class seat on a business trip from Houston to New York. A younger Lucy, fresh off a Series A funding round, had stood in the aisle of that plane in a nearly identical blazer, hearing a white male gate agent say, "This must be a mistake. This seat's reserved for executives." That one sentence, dismissive, degrading, had etched itself into her memory like stone. She flew coach that day, humiliated, and by the time she landed, she had made a promise. One day, she would own the companies that powered their booking systems, and no one would ever question her place again. That promise became Carter Vision, now worth $12 billion. And yet, here she was, still questioned, still told to move. "We need to resolve this quickly," Anna said sharply. "Our priority guests deserve timely boarding." Mason Kim, a journalist seated across the aisle, raised his phone. "Streaming now, just FYI, #Skywave bias." Emily rolled her eyes. "Of course, everyone's a victim with a phone these days." Lucy turned to her. "And everyone's exposed by one?" Anna leaned closer. "Ms. Carter, please cooperate. Ms. Watson has requested this seat." "And I've paid for it," Lucy replied. "And unlike Ms. Watson, I don't need to fabricate loyalty status to get one." Thomas Hayes, a consultant seated behind Emily, leaned forward. "Is this happening because she's black?" The question hung in the air. Claire flinched. Emily scoffed. "This is about status, not skin." Lucy turned to face the cabin. "They don't want me in 1A because the system glitched for 3 minutes, and that glitch validated their bias." She lifted her phone. "So now, we record. For truth. For clarity. For justice. Ma'am, filming crew members isn't allowed, Claire said, stepping forward. Neither is racism, Mason shot back. Choose which one goes viral. Oliver Grant, the gate supervisor, chimed in via intercom. Ma'am, for the comfort of all guests, please relocate per crew instruction. Mr. Grant, Lucy said calmly. You're authorizing an illegal seat reassignment based on appearance. I hope your legal team is ready. Emily laughed, but it came out nervous. She's bluffing. Really? Lucy said. You want to tell the world you just pushed a black female CEO out of her seat, on camera, so a white influencer could take it? Claire's lips tightened. Anna's hands twitched near her tablet. Then came the first twist. Mason angled his phone. Over 20,000 viewers now, comments exploding. And guess what? Emily Watson filed a racial discrimination complaint against Skywave last month, said she was unfairly downgraded. Claire's eyes widened. That's true? Emily hesitated. It's irrelevant. Not when it reveals your hypocrisy, Lucy said. When you're the victim, you cry foul. But when it's someone who looks like me, you laugh. The second twist followed instantly. Mason flipped through a few screens. Internal crew notes, time-stamped 10 minutes before boarding. Anna manually overrode the seat assignment, no authorization. Claire turned sharply. Anna, did you falsify the log? Anna looked cornered. It was just a workaround. The system was biased, Lucy finished. Or were you? Anna said nothing. Claire stepped back, stunned. Emily stood frozen. Smirk vanished. Lucy tapped her screen. Charles, get legal on the line. Claire Ellis. Tell her we're filing before takeoff. She looked around the cabin. This isn't a complaint. It's a reckoning. The intercom clicked again. But this time, Oliver's voice shook. Understood, Miss Carter. No more commands. Just silence. A tremble in tone. And for the first time, recognition, as Lucy sat. Seat 1A, back straight, face forward. The flight crew scrambled behind her. Mason's live feed surged past 30,000. Thomas quietly said, Thank you for not backing down, Lucy whispered. It took me 20 years to earn this seat. I'm not giving it up for anyone's comfort. And from that moment, the clock began. 7 minutes until everything changed, and Skywave's descent began, before the plane ever left the gate. Ms. Carter, this is your final warning. Relocate to seat 1B, or we will have you removed from the aircraft. Anna Torres's voice was no longer cold. It was cracking. Her words brittle under the pressure of a cabin watching, filming, and questioning. Lucy Carter didn't flinch. Still seated in 1A, still dignified in her navy blazer and steel gray blouse. She placed her phone calmly on her tray table, recording everything. No, she said, her voice steady. This seat is mine, and if you touch me, Ms. Torres, I assure you, you'll be unemployed before this flight reaches altitude. The murmur in the first-class cabin thickened. Thomas Hayes sat forward, face tense. This isn't enforcement, it's punishment. Claire Brooks, the lead attendant, glanced nervously between Anna and Lucy. We don't want to escalate this further, she said, though the way she glanced at the growing live stream on Mason's phone said otherwise. Then de-escalate it, Thomas shot back. Verify her ticket, check the log, do your job properly. But they didn't. Not Anna. Not Claire. Instead, they doubled down. Security will be called, Anna said, stepping back toward the galley. Emily Watson, still standing smugly near the jump seat, rolled her eyes. Can we please just remove her already? I have a spa appointment at the Langham this afternoon. Lucy turned slowly toward her. And I have a meeting with CNN in 20 minutes. Would you like to be quoted? Emily paled slightly, then muttered something unintelligible. Claire stepped closer. Ms. Carter, the system doesn't reflect your status. The system glitched at 9:57, Lucy replied. You know it. You ignored it. And now you're protecting that failure because it aligns with your prejudice, Anna snapped. Stop twisting this into something it's not. Lucy's voice was low but fierce. Then stop making it exactly what it is. At that moment, Mason Kim lifted his phone higher. 33,000 live viewers. Hashtag Skywave Bias is now trending across 3 states. Claire flinched. Anna turned away, jaw tight. Oliver Grant's voice came through the intercom again. Cabin crew, please proceed with guest reassignment for compliance. Lucy raised her voice. Guest reassignment. Mr. Grant? That's a sanitized way of saying get the black woman out of first class, isn't it? The intercom clicked off. Silence. Then footsteps. Claire reached toward Lucy's boarding pass. We're asking you to step aside. You mean surrender, Lucy said. But I've done that before. Once. She leaned back, and for a moment, her eyes softened, not with fear, but memory. At 35, she was flying to London for a global funding summit. She had just made Forbes's 40 under 40 list, but the airline never knew. They saw her standing alone at the gate in slacks and natural hair, and when a white executive ran late, they bumped her from her first-class seat to economy without explanation. She didn't fight. She smiled, swallowed the insult, and sat behind the curtain, and for 6 hours, as champagne passed her by, she told herself never again. I've seen this play before, Lucy said now, eyes locked on Claire. I lived it. And this time, I'm rewriting the ending. Anna returned with a walkie-talkie. Ord security is en route, Mason whispered. Lucy, keep speaking. The live stream's picking up steam. Thomas pulled out his phone. I'm filing a formal complaint with DOT. Now. Claire tried again. We can settle this quietly. Ms. Carter. Lucy shook her head. You already made it loud. Emily scoffed again. You people always make everything about race. Mason turned his phone to her. Say that again. I dare you. Emily stepped back. Claire glared at Mason. Sir, turn that off or exit the flight. No, Lucy said, standing now. He's staying, and so am I. Anna stepped between them. Ma'am, please comply. Or what? Lucy asked. You'll drag me down the aisle like United did to that doctor? Mason leaned forward. This is history now. People are watching, and they're choosing sides. Then came the next collapse. Claire's voice cracked. We never did the DEI training, she muttered under her breath, but loud enough for the front row to hear. We were told to prioritize visibly elite guests. I didn't question it. Lucy blinked. You mean you assumed I wasn't elite because I'm not blonde? Claire looked away. Ashamed, phones captured everything. Thomas stood and addressed the row. You all saw that, right? This wasn't about logistics, this was about image. Anna turned sharply. That's enough. But it wasn't. Not for Mason. Not for Lucy. Not for the 39,000 people watching online. You think that apology changes the harm? Lucy asked Claire. You looked at me and didn't see success. You saw a problem to relocate, Claire whispered. I was just following. A broken system, Lucy said. And now that system is being broadcast in real time. That's when Mason showed the next card. Crew notes, he said. Got these from a passenger with airline access. Anna marked an override for seat 1A at 9:58, falsely assigning it to Emily Watson. 3 minutes before boarding, Lucy turned slowly. A deliberate override. No confirmation, just bias. Made policy. Anna's hands clenched. You don't understand the pressure we're under. No, Lucy said. But I understand your choices. Mason's stream passed 45,000. Oliver's intercom clicked on again, but his voice was hesitant now. Cabin crew, pause all actions. We've been contacted by legal. Lucy smiled for the first time. Charles moves fast, Emily muttered. You've ruined this flight, Lucy said. No, Ms. Watson, you did. When you decided appearance equals status, and when this airline agreed with you. Thomas walked up the aisle and stood behind Lucy. You have support, Ms. Carter. Claire's hands trembled. Anna stared at the cabin door, jaw tight, and Mason, still streaming, leaned forward. This is what exposure looks like. This is what consequences sound like. The truth doesn't need volume. It just needs to be seen. Lucy looked around the cabin, at the cameras, the silence, the fear, and the cracks starting to show in every layer of false professionalism, and she whispered, Then let them see everything. And just like that, the tide turned. Not because the airline changed, but because someone refused to move. Then prove it, Claire Brooks snapped, voice sharp, trembling at the edge of control. If you say this seat is yours, then show us an ID. We're not just taking your word for it. She reached out, fingers brushing the edge of Lucy Carter's boarding pass. And in that charged moment, the entire first-class cabin froze. Claire's hand, once trained to serve champagne and guide elite guests, had just attempted to snatch documentation from a seated black woman, on camera, on record, and in front of nearly 50,000 live-stream viewers. Lucy didn't move. She let her boarding pass go and folded her hands on her lap as Mason Kim zoomed in with his phone. You want proof? She said softly. Here's your proof. The moment you tried to rip away what I already earned. That's all anyone needs to see. Anna Torres stood off to the side now, eyes darting between Claire and the cabin. You're disrupting the safety of this flight, she muttered. You're the disruption, Thomas Hayes said from behind them. You turned a seating glitch into a public display of profiling. Oliver Grant's voice came through the intercom again, more strained this time. For safety and order, the guest in 1A must be removed. Escort is needed. There it is, Lucy said. Not verify, not clarify, just remove, because silence and skin are all the system sees. Emily Watson chuckled. You're being dramatic. This isn't about your race. It's about priority. Oh? Lucy asked, turning slightly. And what about the override entered at 9:58? The one favoring your name? Mason tapped his screen. Still live, still trending, still recording everything. We're approaching 6,000 viewers. Hashtag Skywave Bias is now the #1 trending topic in Illinois. Claire backed away slowly. Ma'am, Ms. Carter, please cooperate. This can still be resolved professionally. Lucy rose from her seat at last, standing tall, collected, and calm, her presence stronger than ever. The time for professional resolution ended when you tried to humiliate me on entry. Mason panned his camera to Emily, who stiffened under the digital glare. And Ms. Watson, still feel good about that spa appointment? She crossed her arms. This is nonsense. Lucy gestured to the surrounding passengers. Is it? Then why is everyone filming? Why is corporate calling legal? Why does the word lawsuit keep getting whispered by people in uniforms? That was when Claire lunged, just a step, but enough to try again for Lucy's pass. And in that instant, Lucy stepped back and said, Film this, Mason. Let the world see what happens when they try to rip dignity from your hands. Mason didn't miss a beat. Recording. Wide angle. Claire stumbled and stopped. That's enough, she whispered. I didn't sign up for this, Lucy responded. Yes, you did. The moment you chose silence over integrity. Anna turned toward the back, walkie pressed to her shoulder. Security's approaching. Let them, Lucy said. I've already called mine. Her voice was ice, her stance immovable. Then came a new voice, one that hadn't spoken yet. A young black woman seated in 3B, early 20s, clearly shaken, raised her phone and said, "Ms. Carter, I'm live streaming too, and I believe you." Lucy nodded once. That moment, small, sincere, pierced through the corporate rehearsals and broken protocols. "Thank you," Lucy said, then turned back to face her accusers. Claire opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Mason interrupted. "I've got something." He held up his phone. "Anna, this footage, crew logs just surfaced. You manually assigned 1A to Emily Watson while Lucy's reservation was still valid. That's falsification." "I didn't mean," Anna began. "You didn't mean to get caught," Thomas finished. "There's a difference," Mason continued. "More. Oliver Grant, the gate supervisor, had a bias complaint filed against him last year. Internal memo. Skywave swept it under." Lucy's head turned toward the speaker. "Is that true?" Mason showed the phone screen, where an internal HR doc blurred slightly, but revealed enough. "It's real, quietly resolved, never went public." Lucy looked up toward the ceiling, toward the intercom, toward the weightless place where decisions are made and forgotten. "So you've all done this before," she said. "You've just never done it to someone who could fight back in real time." At 40, Lucy had flown to Tokyo to sign a merger between Carter Vision and a global logistics firm. At check-in, wearing a hoodie and leggings after an overnight delay, she was told, politely, apologetically, that business class had been overbooked, and she had been moved to a middle seat near the rear of the plane. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She took the seat, endured the whispers, and signed the deal anyway. But she never forgot the sting of that dismissal. It haunted her in every boardroom since. And today, it had returned. Only this time, she wasn't silent. "I built this company," Lucy said now, her voice rising just enough to carry through the cabin. "Carter Vision supplies the infrastructure that allows Skywave to track elite status. I know every line of code that pushed your glitch, and I know when your people hide behind it to justify bias," Claire whispered. "You're Lucy Carter?" "Yes," she answered. "And this is your reckoning." The intercom stayed silent. Oliver was no longer giving instructions, just listening, trapped in the very system he helped protect. Emily's voice cracked. "You can't sue over this." Lucy turned to her. "Watch me." Thomas stepped forward. "And we'll testify," Mason added. 65,000 and rising. CNN just followed the stream. Phones vibrated. News apps buzzed. And then Anna's voice broke entirely. "I assigned 1A to the wrong person. I thought Miss Watson was the intended guest. I made a mistake." "No," Lucy said. "You made a choice," Claire whispered. "I don't know what to say," Lucy answered. "Then say nothing, because from this point forward, every word you speak is evidence." The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. Mason raised his phone for one final frame, capturing Lucy standing tall. Claire and Anna visibly shaken, Emily silent, Thomas beside her, and the cabin watching. "The world's watching," Mason said, "and it's about time they saw how people like Lucy Carter are treated, until they fight back." Lucy sat down again. 1A. Where she belonged. Where she always belonged. 7 minutes weren't over yet. But Skywave's reputation? It was already crashing. "ORD security is en route to the aircraft," Anna Torres muttered into her walkie, her voice now threadbare, eyes flicking toward the cabin door as if praying for rescue. Claire Brooks hovered behind her, arms crossed over her chest like a shield, her posture tighter with every breath. Oliver Grant's voice buzzed faintly through the intercom, but he no longer sounded like a man in charge, only one trying not to sink. And still, in seat 1A, Lucy Carter remained, seated, calm, powerful. The tension thickened like fog, every passenger's gaze trained on her, on the crew, on Mason Kim's live stream that had now passed 75,000 viewers and was being mirrored by multiple major outlets. "She's disrupting our operations," Claire insisted to no one in particular, louder now, like saying it enough times would make it true. "She's refusing to comply." Lucy tilted her head slightly. "You still think this is about compliance?" she asked, her voice low but iron-willed. "You think I'm here to argue about a seat? I'm not. I'm here to expose a culture of concealment," Emily Watson hissed. "God, just throw her off already." But no one moved, not even Anna, who had already been burned too badly on camera. Mason's voice cut through the rising unease. "Security's arrival is being filmed. Any attempt to touch Ms. Carter will be broadcast in real time. I suggest you proceed wisely." Claire's jaw twitched. "We have protocols." "And I have rights," Lucy replied. "Rights your company trampled the moment I stepped aboard." That's when Thomas Hayes stood again, stepping beside Lucy like a bodyguard who didn't need to be asked. "If they touch her, I walk. And so does half this cabin." Heads nodded. Murmurs of agreement bubbled up from the rows behind. Claire glanced nervously at the growing solidarity. Mason turned his phone toward the crew. "Passengers are beginning to organize. You're outnumbered." Lucy reached for her phone and called Claire Ellis, her lawyer. "Claire, it's Lucy. File it. Immediate discrimination, harassment, and intentional humiliation." Claire's voice crackled faintly from the speaker. "Already drafting. I'll notify Media Council." "Make it public," Lucy added. "They want a spectacle? Give them one wrapped in liability." Claire Brooks took a slow step back. "You're escalating this beyond repair." "No," Lucy said. "You escalated when you decided who looked worthy of 1A. Anna, trying to regain composure, stepped forward again. "Ms. Carter, if you don't comply, we'll have no choice." "Then make the wrong choice," Lucy interrupted, "and answer to it in court." And then, as if summoned by that very sentence, Thomas stepped forward and opened his iPad. "Do you want to see the log?" he asked. Claire hesitated. "What log?" "The one I pulled from Skywave's internal system before they revoked access for non-crew contractors. I was working with your supplier 2 months ago," Thomas said. "I kept copies, and I found something." He handed it to Mason, who angled the device toward his phone. "Multiple flagged complaints in the past quarter, all tied to crew members on this flight. All ignored." The cabin stirred. Lucy leaned forward. "You're telling me this is a pattern?" Thomas nodded. 6 complaints, 4 racial, 2 age-related, filed and dismissed, all reassigned or buried. Claire's eyes widened. "That's not possible. We would have seen that in the briefings." "Unless someone kept them from you," Mason said. "Unless someone like Oliver Grant suppressed them." Claire looked toward the ceiling, toward the unseen gate agent still hiding behind the safety of the intercom. Then she whispered, barely audible. "I'm not getting fired over this." Lucy rose again. "Then start telling the truth." Claire hesitated for a long beat, then looked at Mason. "You're filming?" "Still live," he said. "And audio's crystal clear?" Claire swallowed hard. "I was warned last month. HR said my DEI scores were below standard. Said another infraction would mean demotion. So I overcorrected." "No," Lucy said, stepping closer, voice just loud enough for the cabin. "You understood what bias was, but when it came down to it, you aligned with comfort, not courage. At 38, Lucy had joined a luxury airline advisory board, one of the few black women in a sea of white men in tailored blue suits. During a confidential session, she'd introduced a program to evaluate crew bias in passenger service. Her proposal was met with polite nods, but never implemented. One executive later said off the record, "You're making a problem where there isn't one." That sentence had haunted her for a decade. She had funded diversity programs, trained boards, reshaped policies, and yet here she was, still proving her right to exist in first class. Thomas pointed to the screen. These logs prove Skywave ignored what they knew. Lucy turned to Anna. "You said security's on the way. Tell me, Ms. Torres, are you prepared to explain why they're being sent? That a platinum-level guest had a boarding pass, proper ID, and was removed solely because you assumed she didn't belong?" Anna's hands trembled. "I didn't mean." "You didn't care," Lucy corrected. "Until now." Claire suddenly stepped back and muttered, "We need to notify corporate." "Too late," Mason replied. "Corporate's watching." And then, the cabin door opened, and instead of security, two Skywave internal supervisors stepped on board, accompanied by legal counsel. Claire and Anna froze. Emily paled. Oliver's voice, for once, was silent. Lucy didn't react. She simply turned to Mason and said, "How many viewers now?" 83,000, he said. "You just made the front page." Lucy nodded once, as if everything had aligned, and in the corner of the screen, a headline from a news alert popped up. "Skywave under fire for viral discrimination incident on SW-117. The supervisors approached slowly, not speaking yet. Mason whispered, "This just became official." And Lucy Carter, still standing, still holding her dignity like armor, said only one thing before they reached her. "Good. Let's begin." The moment the cabin door shut behind the Skywave supervisors, the air shifted. It wasn't just tension anymore. It was reckoning. Lucy Carter didn't stand when they approached. She didn't need to. From seat 1A, she looked up with the calm of someone who had waited years for this moment. The lead supervisor, a white woman in a charcoal blazer with a discreet corporate badge, gave a faint nod of acknowledgement. "Ms. Carter, we understand there's been an issue?" "No," Lucy said, her voice smooth and decisive. "There's been a systemic failure, and I've just filed a lawsuit to address it." Claire Brooks, standing off to the side, turned ghost white. Anna Torres visibly flinched. Emily Watson whispered something under her breath, but no one acknowledged her. "Let me be absolutely clear," Lucy continued. "My name is Lucy Carter. I'm the CEO of Carter Vision Investments and Technology. My company powers Skywave's loyalty analytics, reservation tools, and tier-level classification protocols, the same system your staff used to justify removing me from a seat I paid for." Claire Ellis's voice echoed through Lucy's phone on speaker. "We've filed in federal court, citing Title II of the Civil Rights Act, as well as aviation-specific consumer protections. Press statements are going out now." Mason Kim turned his phone to the legal counsel who had entered with the supervisors. "You're aware this is being live-streamed?" "We are," the supervisor said calmly. "And we'll respond appropriately." Lucy turned then, facing forward, addressing the cabin as if the aircraft had become her courtroom. "Effective immediately, by legal authority and contractual standing with Skywave Technologies, I am terminating Anna Torres, Claire Brooks, and Oliver Grant from their current operational positions. Emily Watson is hereby banned from Skywave Airlines for conduct unbecoming of elite status standards." Claire choked on her own breath. "You can't." "Yes," Lucy said flatly. "I can, and I have." Mason turned his phone to capture Anna's stunned silence. Oliver's voice had not returned since his last intercom instruction. And Emily finally dropped the smug expression and looked, for the first time, uncertain. I didn't do anything illegal, she stammered. Lucy nodded. Correct. You did something worse. You enabled it. You abused influence, mocked a paying customer, and insulted my presence, while claiming an elite status that, as of now, I've confirmed doesn't exist. Emily's face contorted. That's a lie. No, Thomas said, standing from his seat. It's on Mason's screen. Mason turned his phone, revealing a loyalty account lookup showing Emily Watson's membership revoked due to falsified credentials tied to a luxury card cancellation 2 months prior. You forged your access, Mason said. The override was made based on loyalty fraud. Emily's mouth opened and closed. She had no words. Lucy didn't even look at her again. Your influence ends here, she said. There will be no more seats you didn't earn. Claire turned to the Skywave supervisors. You're going to let this happen? This, one of them replied quietly, is happening whether we allow it or not. Then came the first twist. Oliver's voice, finally reappearing via intercom, trembled as he said, I suppressed bias complaints to protect staff morale. I didn't want another PR storm. Lucy looked up. You created a storm, then buried it, and now it's flooding your cabin. Mason raised his phone. Footage of his admission, captured, confirmed. Claire turned to Oliver's speaker above. You lied to us? I contained it. He whispered. That's not the same. Lucy said. That's called betrayal. Passengers behind Lucy began applauding. Not loud, but insistent, undeniable. The second twist followed almost immediately. Thomas turned his tablet to face Lucy. Ms. Carter, Emily's loyalty account wasn't just expired, it was created under a false identity alias tied to a third-party concierge program. That's a violation of federal identity standards for domestic flights. Lucy looked directly at Emily. So you're not just biased, you're counterfeit. Emily backed away toward the galley, cornered by truth. I didn't know they'd check, she whispered. Lucy stood now. She didn't need volume, only clarity. I am not here today because I wanted to be. I am here because your failure summoned me. You thought I would step aside. You thought I would stay silent. But you forgot something fundamental. My silence was never yours to claim. Anna tried to protest. This is my livelihood. Lucy looked at her, unsparing. Then you should have protected it with integrity. Claire Brooks's voice cracked. I didn't want this. No, Lucy said. You just didn't want the consequences. Mason turned back to the cabin. Over 91,000 viewers. MSNBC is running the story. And CNN just retweeted the footage. Thomas put a hand on Lucy's shoulder. Justice, he said quietly. It's rising, Lucy nodded. And it's only just begun. The Skywave legal counsel stepped forward. Ms. Carter, we'll be issuing statements and facilitating transition. Do you wish to remain aboard this flight? Lucy paused, then sat back in 1A and said, I've waited years for this seat. I'm not leaving now. And as the cabin quieted, passengers applauded again, louder this time, not just for Lucy's presence, but for the end of something rotten and the beginning of something reckoned. At 10:07 a.m. CDT, just 7 minutes after Lucy Carter was told she didn't look like someone who belonged in seat 1A, Skywave Airlines began to collapse, quietly at first, then all at once. As Lucy sat firmly where she'd always deserved to be, her phone buzzed with rapid notifications. Mason Kim, still filming, held his phone toward her with a stunned expression. Stocks dropping, 42%, 48, 53. Thomas Hayes looked up from his own screen. Investors are pulling out. Reddit boards are exploding. You just triggered a boycott. Lucy didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She just nodded once. Then they've finally seen the cost of silence. Claire Ellis's voice crackled through Lucy's speakerphone from New York. The lawsuit is now public. Class action language has been authorized. Legal representatives are coordinating with the Department of Transportation. Media has the footage. It's done. Claire Brooks, no longer standing upright, slumped near the galley jump seat, her expression a mix of dread and disbelief. Anna Torres leaned against the bulkhead, defeated, and Emily Watson, stripped of her fraudulent status, sat with her back against the wall, watching it all fall apart in real time. Skywave has declared emergency bankruptcy proceedings. Mason read aloud from his screen. Trading halted. The supervisor from corporate stepped toward Lucy and whispered, We didn't know this would go this far. Lucy's eyes narrowed. That's because you underestimated how far bias goes when it's hidden behind smiles and policy. You built a system that protected the comfortable and punished the credible, and now that system is falling. Mason turned his phone outward. 102,000 viewers, all watching the death of an airline in real time. Lucy rose again, calmly adjusting her blazer. As of this moment, by contractual authority and the filed suit, I am terminating the employment of Anna Torres, Claire Brooks, and Oliver Grant for cause, citing misconduct and discriminatory action in direct violation of corporate DEI protocols. Anna tried to speak but choked on her own breath. Please, I didn't mean... You meant to get away with it, Lucy replied, not unkindly, but with finality. And that's worse. Claire said nothing. She just closed her eyes. Emily shifted uncomfortably but stayed silent, as if realizing the less she said, the longer she might survive the fallout. Then came the next twist. Mason looked up from his tablet, face grim. Lucy, I found something in the logs, a memo Anna submitted 2 weeks ago. It outlined a plan to flag or adjust complaints related to DEI violations to avoid corporate review. 8 logs were falsified, including at least 3 from black passengers. Gasps erupted from the passengers nearby. Lucy took Mason's device and read it silently, then turned toward Anna. You didn't just act on bias. You built a strategy around hiding it. Anna's eyes welled up, but she didn't argue. She knew it was over. Mason, Lucy said, handing him back the tablet. Post it. Let them see it all. Already on X, he replied. Footage, logs, full trail. Hashtag Skywave collapse is now trending worldwide. The second twist came moments later. Claire Ellis sent a final file directly to Lucy's phone. Lucy opened it, scanned quickly, then turned to the Skywave supervisor. Your CEO, she said, has received over 50 internal warnings from whistleblowers about racial and gender-based profiling over the past year. Everyone was dismissed without follow-up. The supervisor didn't argue. He just looked down at his shoes. Then this, Lucy continued, isn't a surprise. It's a consequence. Thomas stepped beside her again. They won't just lose the company. They'll lose public trust for years. Lucy nodded. And that's what real accountability looks like. Around them. The cabin remained hushed. Passengers checked headlines on their phones. Others recorded quiet commentary, while a few simply stared at Lucy as if watching history reshape itself in real time. Mason held up his phone once more. CNBC just posted the headline, CEO fires crew mid-flight as Skywave crashes into bankruptcy. Lucy adjusted her sleeves, composed and clear. Let this be the moment where silence ended. Let it be the moment where equity stopped being optional, Thomas murmured. It already is. And as Skywave's stock evaporated across every financial feed, Lucy Carter stood not just as the woman they tried to remove, but as the woman who brought an empire of bias to its knees with nothing but truth, resolve, and a seat she refused to surrender. As Lucy Carter remained seated in 1A, The cabin transformed into a quiet courtroom of truth, justice, and reckoning. Anna Torres, Claire Brooks, and Oliver Grant had all been dismissed. Legally, publicly, and irreversibly, Emily Watson, once smug and untouchable, now sat alone, stripped of status and silenced by the weight of her own deception. The Skywave supervisors offered no defense. They simply watched. Mason Kim checked his feed again. Hashtag Skywave collapse has topped 2 million mentions. FAA regulators are now involved. DOJ's Civil Rights Division just followed the footage. You didn't just take down a flight. Lucy, you're rewriting the airline industry. Claire Ellis's voice buzzed through Lucy's phone once more. The filings are trending. Commentators are calling this the most significant DEI lawsuit since 2016. Lucy looked around the cabin, taking it all in, not with triumph, but with purpose. This was never just about me, she said quietly. It's about every flyer told to sit down, stay quiet, or be grateful they were even allowed to board. Thomas Hayes, still standing near her, added, It's about dignity. Restored. Then came the first final twist. Mason's screen lit up with a breaking post from a verified whistleblower account. A former Skywave executive had just confessed to enabling internal bias protocols for years. The crew was incentivized to favor certain profiles, the message read, and internal flags for discrimination were routinely downgraded before review. Mason read it aloud. Claire Brooks's name is in the file. So is Anna's. So is Oliver Grant's. Lucy didn't flinch. Then accountability just reached the source. The Skywave supervisor nodded solemnly. Claire Brooks is now officially suspended pending investigation. We're initiating third-party review. Lucy's voice cut through the cabin one last time. Let the record show. Equity delayed is dignity denied. But not today. Applause broke out. Genuine. Sustained. No longer awkward or hesitant. Even passengers who had remained quiet now stood, clapping as Lucy returned to her seat. But then, another ping. Mason turned his phone again. Anna just posted a public apology on X. He paused, reading. I deeply regret my actions today and ask for forgiveness. I was overwhelmed. Then he added, It was scripted, copy-pasted from Skywave PR. We have the original version they issued to her an hour ago. Lucy shook her head slowly. You can't script sincerity, and you can't template redemption. A few passengers booed softly, the gesture not theatrical, but honest, frustration voiced. Let them hear that, Lucy said. Let them feel the weight of consequences. As the crew began to clear the front cabin under new oversight, Lucy stood and addressed Mason. You were the voice we needed today. You captured what history would have otherwise buried. I want to offer you something. A quote? He asked. No. She said, a seat, first class, on any Carter Vision partnered airline, for life. Mason blinked. Seriously? Seriously, she said, because today, you filmed justice. You made silence visible. Mason stepped back, genuinely moved. Thank you, Ms. Carter. Lucy turned to Thomas. And you, your presence, your calm, your refusal to back down. I'll see to it that you're part of the Equity Wave Advisory Board. We launch it today. Thomas smiled. I'd be honored. Then Lucy stepped into the aisle, turned to face the front cabin, and spoke clearly, powerfully, one last time. As of this moment, the Equity Wave protocol is live. All Skywave partner airlines will undergo mandatory DEI retraining, policy reform, passenger protection audits, and public bias incident reporting. We are no longer asking for equity. We are enforcing it. Mason held his phone steady. We're still live. Lucy nodded. Good. Let them see the moment the culture changed. Then she sat down again. Seat 1A. Still hers. Still earned. Not just as a passenger, but as a leader who refused to be moved. Months later, the airline industry would look very different. The Equity Wave protocol would be adopted by 5 major carriers. Skywave's brand would dissolve into bankruptcy filings. But its downfall would serve as a template for how reform begins, not with a press release, but with courage. And as Lucy's story continued to circulate across screens, airwaves, and boardrooms, one truth remained. When someone like her speaks and refuses to yield, the sky listens. If you've ever been judged for how you look, where you sit, or who they think you are, don't move. Don't lower your voice. Don't accept silence. Share this story. Speak your truth, and help us build skies where equity flies first.